Hello, and welcome to the first ever Cars.co.za podcast. You join us in our brand new podcast studio, which I'll introduce to you in a couple of minutes. But first, let me introduce my first ever studio guest, Ashley Oldfield. Hello, Ash.
Hello, I'm here for the first time actually seeing this since it was our boardroom.
Oh yeah, this is the first time you're seeing this. What do you think?
It's red.
It is a bit red.
Yeah.
So that's actually a working sound board with our sign on it, which I'm quite excited about. Provides some sound deadening. So to our viewers, if you're watching this, because you can also listen to it as a podcast, that's an option. But if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, this was or still is the Cars.co.za boardroom, because we're still going to have to use it as a boardroom. But I really wanted to build a podcast studio for the company, and instead of just building a studio from scratch, which would have been quite expensive, then I would have to write a letter to our accountants, which is all very boring. I just didn't ask anyone permission and then just turned this into the podcast studio. So the reason it has a wave on that wall is because the founders of Cars.co.za love surfing and they put that wave there. But that's going to go. We're going to put some sentimental stuff up there, which will be really cool.
Has anyone told the founders of Cars.co.za that?
Yeah, they're in. They're in on that part. Yeah. So we're very happy to be here. In the middle of Ash and I is a pandemic screen, just to make it a bit more comfortable, a little bit safer, so we don't have to sit here with our masks on, because then we'd sound like Kenny from South Park. We don't want that. Right, Ash, are you ready? Coming up on this first episode, we'll be doing some buying advice. We'll be recommending 5 best cars that we think you should purchase under 80,000 Rand. Everyone's income's a little bit stressed, so we're going to the under 80,000 Rand mark, used cars. We'll be chatting about the Ineos Grenadier, which has been in the headlines for quite a while now, actually. Ash and I will be reviewing the Mercedes-AMG GT63 S 4MATIC 4-door. I think that's its full name.
There's more to it, I'm sure.
Is there more? I'm sure there's more.
Have been.
I don't even think Merck knows what that car's called. But let's start off with something very exciting. The Gordon Murray Automotive T.50 Supercar just launched this week. I think we'll put some images on the screen. But the images I want to put on the screen, actually, I want to focus on Gordon Murray's tropical T-shirt choice. I think that's the news here.
He does like a floral T-shirt. Well, it's not even a T-shirt. It's a collared shirt and everything. But he mixes them up, doesn't he? They're not just the same floral shirt. But I guess if you're a designer, you have to be slightly flamboyant. Maybe because he's so technically minded, his creative side comes out in his shirts, because it seems he has a huge wardrobe of them, because they obviously did that thing where they park the car in the warehouse and they have a couple of different influencers and magazines come through. So all the influencers have released their picture with Gordon Murray, and in each picture he has a different floral shirt, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. But anyway, we should probably talk about the car. I mean, 3.9 litre V12. Yeah, it's wow, it's an impressive piece of machinery. I mean, he ticked a lot of boxes with this car. He wanted to get it under a ton, which is pretty impressive for a supercar these days. One of the biggest problems with them is that they're all too heavy and too full of electronics and unnecessary weight. So he got this thing to 986 kilograms?
That's insane. That's lighter than my Mazda, my MX-5.
And that's 1989. That's before they invented heavy things.
That's unbelievable. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, when I drove the McLaren 720S, I did some research on it, and it weighs the same as a Polo GTI, but has 550 odd kilowatts. I mean, that's what creates dramatic performance. So this thing is going to be extremely quick. If you want to know everything about the car, we've got an article on Cars.co.za right now, but he sourced the engine from Cosworth. Yeah. 3.9 litre V12. My favorite fact about it so far is that it revs to 12,100 RPM.
Yeah, that's insanely high. I mean, if you think nothing's really revved high because of turbochargers over the last sort of decade. So we've been starved of high revving, naturally aspirated engines. So I think the last great one that people remember will probably be the 8,500 RPM revving S2000 engine. And now we're going well over 11,000.
That's insane. I mean, this is motorbike territory. I mean, from a technical perspective, Ash, I'm not sure how deep your knowledge goes of these things. Probably deeper than mine. But how, most cars, like you say, redline 7,000, 8,000. I mean, what do you have to do to an engine to get it to that point? Because the Lexus LFA also went to a crazy number as well. And I mean, is it just all the components are lighter?
Yeah, you lighten everything inside the engine to start with. Then you need a pretty strong crankshaft and conrod as well. I think the V12 layout helps it as well. It means you spread your weight over a really long distance as well. So things like that help as well. But yeah, some really clever material usage as well in there, I'm sure.
It's very low on torque, as you'd expect. So 488 kilowatts, 467 newtons. I can't remember the last car I saw which had more kilowatts than Newton meters.
that's sort of Formula One car territory there.
Yeah. And he stuck a manual in, which is
nuts. And it's an H spec manual, so it's going to be absolutely phenomenal.
Center driving position. Yeah. Interestingly, he's done what Elon Musk has been dreaming of doing, and he's managed to remove the side mirrors completely, stick some cameras in there with some screens, and I think that'll probably help his aero as well. Well, it definitely will.
There's a lot of aero on this car.
Yeah.
It's even got aero modes rather than drive modes.
More modes to deal with. So I mean, that active fan at the back is quite famous because it was used in F1 briefly and then banned immediately. Yeah,
it's a really cool story around that, because Gordon Murray, I listened to a podcast actually of him chatting about that Brabham fan car, and it was a technological marvel. I mean, the way he got around the rules to get it into F1 was, he actually said 60% of the fan did the cooling of the car and 40% was used for something else. So that bypassed the rules. You had to have more of the fan doing the cooling work. So and then obviously once the FIA figured out the system, they banned it after one race. Well, all the teams got together and said it's unfair.
That's the story of F1, isn't it? You know, everyone pointing at other people in the paddock going, that's unfair. The fan, right, very rudimentary explanation from what I understand is it sucks air out from sort of underneath the car and sucks the car down to the road. Is that pretty much the principle? Yeah,
that's pretty much the principle. If you're able to suck air through all of the venturis and the ground effects, you can suck it down. But what's great about a fan is that it doesn't produce air at high speed. So you get low speed downforce as well as high speed downforce.
Wow.
So ideally, theoretically, it should be extremely fast in slow speed corners, because you can create downforce there as well, or ground force.
Okay, so the first McLaren F1, absolutely legendary car. I mean, it was pretty much a turning point in what was possible with a road car. Went on to win Le Mans, even though it was never really built for track use, which really was a testament to how incredible that car was. BMW 6-litre V12, they only made 106 of them. Do you think they'll make a few more T50s? I think Gordon Murray might be cashing out a bit.
Yeah, what have we got? First deliveries in 2022, he suspects. I think if you can afford one, he will build one for you.
Maybe that's the point. Yeah, he's like the British Pagani in worse shirts.
Yeah, so he's decided to produce 125 to start with.
Okay.
But beyond that, I'm sure if you come to him with a lot of, you're going to need a lot of rands. I suspect 50 million or more, I think, is the estimated price.
50 million rand?
Yep. I think...
Holy moly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, most of them have been pre-sold, so 53 million is the exact rand transfer amount.
Okay. All right. Well, let's hope we get to drive one day. That would be nice.
Well, Gordon is South African.
Yeah.
So, originally South African.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where he gets his floral shirts from. It's sort of a tribute to Madiba.
Yeah, that's maybe what it is. All right, if you've just joined us, coming up later in the podcast, best buys under 80,000 Rand. We're chatting about the Ineos Grenadier, and Ash and I will be reviewing the AMG GT 4-door, which there's a video about it on our channel if you want to head over and watch me scare myself a little bit in that ridiculously powerful car. I think Ash and I don't think it's really going to be much of a debate about that car, because I think we have similar opinions. But let's chat a little bit about the Ineos Grenadier in the headlines, because Jaguar Land Rover lost a court case to basically stop Jim Ratcliffe, the billionaire behind the Ineos Grenadier, from building it, because they say that his shape is way too similar to their shape. What do you think? Do you think the Grenadier is it rare? Is it a carbon copy?
it's a bit too similar, but it's also very similar to the G-Class. They're all sort of, if you build a square box, Jaguar Land Rover, it's their square box.
I was about to say that. The G-Class is a square box. The Hummer H3 was a square box. The Jeep Wrangler is pretty much a square box. I mean, look, it's pretty obvious, and Jim Ratcliffe made it very clear that he wanted to build a sort of a spiritual successor to the Defender. Quite interestingly, I read that when he heard the Defender was being binned, he went to Jaguar Land Rover and said, "Can I buy all the tooling from it?" And he wanted to just carry on making it himself. And they said, "Absolutely not." So that was the end of that discussion. And he's like, "Oh, well, I'm a billionaire. I'll just build my own one."
It is one of the handy things about being a billionaire. When people say no, you just do it on your own. But yeah, it is extremely similar to the Land Rover, if we're honest. I think before they even released it, it was always going to be a successor to the Defender. But Land Rover, they do have a way of making sure that people don't steal any of their property, their IP. Yeah. I mean, there was a story a few years ago about a brand called LR Industries or something in the UK, and Jaguar went after them because LR was too close to JLR. And they thought people would associate this other brand with them as well. So they do have a history of taking people to court and trying to get things turned against them.
I'm really looking forward to the Grenadier. I mean, 3 diffs, beam axles, they're going old school. They want it to be used by sort of fire crews around the world, that sort of thing. They really want to fill that gap that the Defender's potentially leaving, because they're talking about how obviously the Defender's very expensive now. They're talking about the Range Rover-fication of the Defender, and I've seen a few running around. They look very shiny and very expensive. I don't know if that's going to be the 4x4 darling anymore of the sort of hardcore enthusiast world. And the reason I have your keys are there, Ash, on top of my Defender. The reason I put this in here, so we sell this on our Sentimental shop if you want to go and head over, but this is now the only Defender you can buy, actually. So if you want one, head over to Sentimental shop and pick yourself up a 118 Defender. The interesting thing for me, BMW engines in the Ineos Grenadier, and that made me think that BMW, my speculation is that BMW might do a deal with them and sell this in their showrooms. Do you think that that's possible?
Almost certainly not.
But hear me out, right? Ineos Grenadier, they want global scale. To roll out to build a global dealership network is hugely expensive. I mean, just the servicing and all the rest of it. And you have to have these big fancy showrooms, cost a fortune. BMW doesn't have a rival in their quiver to the Mercedes G-Class. They certainly don't have anything like the Ineos Grenadier in their lineup. So I don't think it would hurt business for them to sell inside a dealership.
No, I think what they'd want to see it in the flesh and at least give it a few years before they try and pin one down in a showroom. But I think you're right. It's one of the few areas where BMW doesn't compete with Mercedes-Benz. But BMW also has a history with Land Rover type cars, don't they? They powered that 2.8 IS Defender of the 90s as well. So there's a bit of history there.
Of course,
with the shapes.
For that week that they owned Land Rover.
Yeah. That's quite a collectible car in South Africa now, if you can find a BMW spec Land Rover Defender.
Of course, I remember that. I wonder if that influenced Jim Ratcliffe's decision. He was like, they stuck BMWs in these things a long time ago. Let's make this work.
How do you feel about the name of this Ineos Grenadier?
Ineos Grenadier. So I think my favorite piece of trivia about the Ineos Grenadier is that he named it after his favorite pub.
That's right, it's named after the pub. That's it.
Because you sort of imagine this like hardcore military man lobbing grenades at the enemy, and that's where he got the thing from. But it's where he likes a pint. That's where it's from.
I have no idea how to say it. I mean, Grenadier also sounds like Grenada, which is the last thing you want to happen to an engine inside your car.
Yeah.
For it to go
you don't
Grenadier
want it to detonate
everywhere.
I'm looking forward to that car. I really am.
Yeah.
Right. The Cars.co.za podcast episode 1 continues. I feel like we should do something like, and now a word from our sponsor, and then our colleague Hannes can play a sentimental ad in the middle of our show. I think we'll do that in the future.
He's here. I think he sat in his Citroen DS over there. He can do it from there.
You can just walk in and
I can tell you, I haven't missed looking at that for the 3 months I've been away from the office.
Oh, shame. Let's not rag. We don't rag Hunters too much. It's episode 1. We've got a long way to go. All right. I think let's do some buying advice, and then we'll get into that AMG 4-door, Ash. So a couple of weeks ago on my Cape Talk segment, where I do some live Q&A, some car stuff, a question came in, could you recommend some used cars under 80,000 Rand? And they podcasted that, put it on their website, and it became, I think, the top 5 most listened to podcasts ever on capetalk.co.za. So this is seemingly quite a popular topic. Obviously, financial times are really tough right now. There's a big strain on everyone's disposable income. So I thought, let me head over to Cars.co.za, to the classified section of our site, and pick out a couple of cars. So I'm going to run these past you.
Sure.
You tell me what you think. So I found a 2014 Hyundai i20, 67,000 Ks on the clock for 75 grand.
i20 is not a bad choice. That wasn't the first one I thought you were going to hit me with, honestly. i20 that was a pretty reliable car as well. Very basic, 1.4 naturally aspirated engine. Yeah, there's not much that can go wrong there. It's a good choice. It's spacious too. That i20 was extremely popular, so you wouldn't have a problem with spare parts. Servicing, anyone can really do on one of those. It's quite a basic structure. I think the newer i20, I think the new one was 2016, if I'm correct.
The brand new model.
Yeah, I think it was 2015 or 2016. That didn't sell as well. So the one that you are recommending there was very popular.
Okay, there we go. That's I've hit. We're 1 for 1 here, which is good. And 75 grand, walk in, offer the dealer 65 cash. Probably get it out of him. Dealers are looking to make sales at the moment, so.
Yeah, the only thing to always be aware with the older generation Hyundai is what sort of safety spec you're going to get. I think they were a little bit skimp on ABS and EBD on certain models, so make sure you do your research on which model you're getting and which safety features they have.
They're still a bit skimp on that stuff. I mean, the Creta, I think, doesn't even have ESC. So, yeah, Hyundai seems to strip that sort of thing out of their cars, which is a bit frustrating, but I think it's just to get to the right price point, really. Next car up that I found on Cars.co.za. Now, it's important for us to state that by the time you're listening to this or watching this, these cars might be gone, but this is indicative of what's out there and what you might find on our site. So 2012 Honda Jazz, 125,000 Ks, 79,900. Do you think the fact that it's over 100,000 is problematic for a Jazz?
No, I mean, so only just started to wear in. If you can call wear on a Jazz a thing, those Honda Jazzes, that's the Japanese Jazz as well, before they turn it into a Honda built, an Indian built Jazz. So Japanese Jazz will last a lifetime. If you break one, you've done something wrong.
You've hit a tree. Yeah. That's what's gone wrong.
And that's got those really cool magic seats in the back as well, which fold down, but they also fold further into the floor as well, giving you a ton of space in the rear.
Yeah, you can move house with a Jazz. It's a very smart seating arrangement. Yeah, you're right.
Certainly better than Stutterford van lines.
2012 Toyota Yaris, 98,000 Ks for 75 grand.
Oh, the Yaris, become less and less popular over the years, and that's the most flat-paneled car I think you can buy. Look, a Toyota it's again like a Honda, almost bulletproof reliability. Plenty of places that you can service or get it fixed. Yeah, it's hard not to recommend Japanese cars in general when you're looking for second-hand stuff. They just seem reliable, simply built, and easy to repair and run.
That's, sort of my guiding principles here are Japanese, naturally aspirated, so no turbo, manual gearbox. That's pretty much it, really.
I think that's a pretty good principle if you're looking in this sort of under 100, under 80, under 100 grand type of area. Yeah, Japanese is pretty much the winner there.
There is an article on our site right now where Ash and the content team gave some advice for under 100,000 as well. I thought we'd go to 80 for a little bit of differentiating factor here on the podcast. Last two, I quite like this one. 2015 Hyundai i10, 50,000 Ks on the clock for 80 grand.
Yeah, i10, a little bit small, but again, same size as the Yaris, I imagine. If I remember correctly, yeah. i10, it's okay. Is that the 1.1 that you've managed to find me there?
Oh, good question.
Or is it the
Not
1.0?
sure because there were a couple of engine options in that generation.
Yeah.
I just remember a friend of mine owning one of these, and I drove it quite a lot. And the packaging of that car was quite impressive. It was quite spacious inside, even though it was fairly compact.
Yeah, more than you think.
Yeah, and you get them they come out of the rental fleets as well, which is quite good. So, there might be some bargains out there.
Yeah, they weren't too great on freeways from what I imagine. They were sort of like at 4.5 to 5,000 RPM and about 110k an hour. So yeah, it's not going to be the most fuel efficient thing on the freeway. Or it's kind of uprighty as well. It's quite a narrow track on those types of things. So if you get caught in a crosswind, it's sort of hold on a little bit and drift into it. They were a little bit hard to handle when conditions were tricky.
But I think, that sort of generation of car, pretty straightforward, pretty easy to service, loads of parts around. So similar to your advice about the i20.
Yeah.
And here's a little bit of a wild card if you're looking for something a bit bigger, because all of these cars are actually quite compact. And I found a 2007, which is quite old now. I mean, that's 13 years old, but a Nissan Tiida with well under 100,000 Ks for 75,000. And that's potentially quite a good family car, actually, because given the sheer size of the thing.
Yeah, you sort of have to have committed to giving up on life, though, if you want to Tiida.
It's not pretty.
It's not pretty.
No.
It's not exciting.
No.
It's so bland in there. Ciro, sure. I don't have anything nice to say about a Tiida, if I'm honest.
Sure. I think, though, if you go back to our guiding principles,
yes,
it does tick those boxes.
Yes, and space, yes. If you don't want to be in a car, but you have to have a car, and you want to transport your family members that you don't particularly like, maybe.
All right, so I got 4 out of 5 there. I think that's a pretty good scorecard. All right, so as mentioned, article on the site for best buys under 100,000. There's our best buys for under 80,000. Do remember that those particular options, which we'll link to in the description of this video, might be gone by the time you watch this. That's kind of the nature of these things. So, but that is indicative of what you might find on our website. All right, Ash, we've come to the final segment of the show. There is a video about this car on our website, on our YouTube channel rather, the Mercedes-AMG GT63 4MATIC Plus 4-door.
Oh, you missed the S after 63.
Ah, so close. Nearly. So, I didn't spend too much time in this car. The time I did spend, I didn't like it very much.
No, and when someone hands you a 3 million rand car,
yeah,
it's difficult to find things not to like, but this one was very easy. It's
a bit cynical for me because you've got the AMG GT, which is this low-slung sports car designed to rival the best from Porsche, for instance. Then they take an E-Class chassis, same engine, nice grille on the front, plump up the price to well over 3 million rand before options, and our test unit didn't even have electric seats, which completely blew my mind, or an electric steering column.
Didn't have the media kit that gives you Android Auto or Apple CarPlay either.
Yeah, I mean, so you're at 3.2 and you're still going in. Okay, but let's try not talk about price too much. They have beefed the car up. It's actually more powerful than the AMG GTR. 470 kilowatts, 630 horsepower, 900 newtons, 664 pound-feet of torque for our international audience before you all shout at me. 0 to 62 in 3 seconds flat. I mean, it has all the supercar numbers.
It does, but it's billed as a GT car.
Yeah.
So it's one of the strangest cars Mercedes make for me. What you've got the GT, like you said, you've got the GT brand, which is sort of a performance sports car, almost supercar like look. But then you take your sedan, your CLA or your E-Class.
E-Class, yeah. CLS chassis.
CLS chassis,
Yeah.
E-Class chassis. And then you try and turn that into a sports car. And what they did, it's like I think you said in the review, it's a Frankenstein car. It's a mix of too many things, and it's good where it shouldn't be in the really fast flowing corners and out there in the mountain passes where it shouldn't be good. It's really good there, and then it's not so great when you take it into the city or on long drives. It's strange.
It's the ride is compromised in terms of comfort.
Yeah.
So it's a GT car which isn't comfortable but which is good in corners. So it's not a GT car then.
And then it weighs 2 tons. So
weighs more than a Range Rover Sport. My two things dynamically, my two issues dynamically and the one positive, it did feel significantly lighter than what it says on the license disc, which is very impressive. That's some serious German wizardry there. The two things that did bother me about it, one, I thought the center of gravity was too high. You sit too high in the car. Okay, I'm not the tallest person in the world, so this could just particularly affect me. The other thing that bothered me was you can really feel all the suspension components and the ESC and all the software and everything working in that car. So it's impressive from a technical point of view, but it's not a pure sports car experience at all, and that bothered me quite a lot.
Yeah, you're right. You do sit up high because it's the E-Class chassis and not the GT chassis. So you sit up high, and it's almost like an on top of the car experience. It's very much like tin top car racing would be to a Formula One driver who sits within the car. But it's amazing what it can do, despite the thing being quite a tall car and more sedany than performance car. But yeah, it's I was very confused by it, still confused, but
I just don't think I think there's an opportunity to make memorable cars and give them sort of memorable nameplates, and then there's an opportunity, I think, to cash in. And you can't say to manufacturers don't make a profit. I mean, they're in the business of making money. They're in the business of making money from cars. So this makes a lot of sense. You've got this parts bin, you throw it all together, give it a long name, and you've got a new model. But I don't think I'll remember this car in 5-10 years time.
No, I don't think it's a memorable car. But yeah, it seems weird that you've got the GT nameplate and then you take another car to try and make a GT out of it. So yeah, I think I would have just made another GT derivative that was slightly more comfortable and more powerful and gone that direction. But yeah, they do want to make a profit, so I'm sure they'll sell a few to people who have the 3 million rand. But again, if you're playing in that sort of market, would you not be tempted by more iconic brands, possibly the Mercedes-Benz? I mean, like Porsche, the Panamera is not far off there. I mean, Aston Martin makes some stuff that's not too far off. I mean, 3 million to 4 to 5.
It starts with a V. What's the 4-door?
Oh my goodness.
It's completely
Vanquish,
slipped my mind.
No, it's not Vanquish.
We've got a video on that car on our site, if you can remember what it's called.
Well, the previous 4-door was called the Rapide, wasn't it?
Rapide, there we go. It doesn't start with a V. I think it's the only Aston Martin which doesn't, actually. So they're all Vantage.
Well, there's a lot of DBs.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. I think that's also why this car exists. The Panamera exists, the M8 Grand Coupe exists, the Audi RS7 exists. So you need this sort of 4-door fast coupe thing to come out of Mercedes.
Yeah, I don't see what's wrong with the E63, if I'm honest. That's a great car. I love the E63. I drove it. I see that they've now facelifted it, but I drove the pre-facelift in Portugal on some of the best and most manicured roads you've ever driven, and I love that E63. It's unbelievable what it can do. I'm sure it's still good 5 years down the line now, so
yeah,
can't wait to drive the facelifted one when it arrives next year.
There we go. Me too. All right, Ash, thank you very much for joining me. Thanks for coming in this weird world that we live in. We're all working from home and never see each other anymore. Miss you guys, man. Miss the content team. But good to see you. And thank you to our audience. Thank you very, very much for joining us for this first ever Cars.co.za. Made it right to the end without a fluff. Yeah. The first ever Cars.co.za podcast. It's very exciting. This has been a dream of mine for a really long time to get this right. So I'm very happy to be sitting here with all of you today. Thank you very, very much for watching. This will be coming out weekly on our YouTube channel. You'll also be able to listen to it as a podcast on the 7,000 podcast platforms that there are out there to choose from. So we'll make it nice and easy for you to find us. Thanks very much. Thanks, Ash.
Thanks, Ciro.
We're out. Did you know that we also sell really awesome car-themed merchandise? Check out our range of custom t-shirts and prints at our online store now. Simply click on the square box on your screen and we'll take you there, or the link is in the description below. Thanks for watching.